The following program is a Town of Colonie television production of the William K. Sanford Town Library.
All right, well, thanks for coming, everyone. Our last several noon book review, noon author talks have been on political scandals, global warming, and end-of-life care. So I think today we're going to have more. Today should be more enjoyable and fun. Chris Filstrup is here. If you saw the book, it's a beautiful book. He's written a book, and he's got a nice presentation about the history of earrings. So thanks for coming. And so here's Chris.
Thank you. Well, it's good to be, I guess, the light after such a heavy agenda. Thank you for coming. So today I'm going to do the following. I'm going to show, the book has about 300 illustrations in it, mostly color. I'm going to show us maybe 30 illustrations. I'm going to read a little bit from the text, and then I've gone around and I know there's at least a couple of stories in here about people in the audience who have brought their earrings, or at least a story about their earrings, and we'll do that. Okay. So the ear is mostly cartilage, and we have this nice soft tissue in the earlobe. So that was the obvious place to put a piece of jewelry. The earliest jewelry, we have rings, we have necklaces, bracelets, right? These are quite common and easy things to decorate our bodies. And then the ear, this nice soft tissue, which is very easy to pierce and put something through. This is the cover of the book, and this is the only painting we could find which actually has the title of earring. It's Boucle Dorée. It's a French painting. So in the word boucle, you can hear the French have some idea of like buckle, something that clamps on the ear. And in different languages, in English we have ear ring, so kind of that the ring goes through the earlobe. German is the same, Ohrringe. The Spanish call it pendiente, so they have the sense of something that hangs. So different languages have different ways. I don't know, is there anybody else here who can supply in a foreign language the word for an earring? Like Italian or Portuguese? Chinese, yeah, what? And sort of what does it mean?
That means ear and loop.
Ear loop. Okay, so that would be the sense of a loop, like a ring would go through the ear. This is a genre painting by a French 19th century painter, Bouguereau. And by genre, we mean he wasn't wandering around the rural France and found this young lady and painted her. He set it up in a studio, or perhaps it's from his imagination. And she's wearing two coral stones below, and I don't know if you can see it. Does this have a pointer? She's actually got a wire going over her ear. Okay, so not all the earrings were necessarily just going through the lobe. Here she's got a pretty heavy set of earrings, so they put a wire all the way over the ear. In the book, I'm not going to show it today, we have an amazing picture, a photo of Catherine Deneuve, the great French actress, wearing a set of huge earrings designed by Man Ray that come down to about her shoulders, and she's got them looped over here because you cannot possibly hold the heavy weight of these Man Ray spirals. They look like they're actually kind of a spiral hanging from Catherine Deneuve's ears. So that's the cover. There are not a lot of men in the book. Actually, a book of men's earrings is waiting to be written. we were amazed to find that nothing has been done scholarly, popular. There just is very, very little about men's earrings. But the earliest earring that we know about, I'll have to say to this lady who's Chinese, we did not go to East Asia. We pretty much started with the Near East and worked our way west. So it's really very much a Western history of earrings. But this is the earliest pair of earrings that we could find. And this is an Assyrian, a great Assyrian conqueror, Ashurbanipal II. And he built the city of Nimrud, which is very much in the news right now. This is contemporary Mosul. This is where the Islamic State has occupied, and he built this great city, Nimrud, and he's wearing plugs in his ear. These are earrings of power. You can see there's a big plug that is on his lobe, and then there's something hanging down. And if anybody ever goes to the Metropolitan Museum in New York City, there is a room. This is where this image is, it's a bas-relief, right? They have pulled the image out from the background, and it's a room the size of this in which the frieze runs all the way around the room. This is Ashurbanipal. He does not enter the Bible, but his ancestors do. Probably, I think, 2 generations later, they conquer Israel and Judah, the Jewish kingdoms, and enter the Bible. So the Assyrians were enormously important to our understanding of history, because all of a sudden the Jews had to explain why they were being conquered by a non-Jewish people. And this begins a whole meaning of history that is still very, very much with us. You can see he's got an attendant, also wears an earring, and he's holding this staff of power. So that's Ashurbanipal. He's our first one. We have a long chapter, a kind of a scholarly chapter on the classical period. The Greeks excelled in earrings. They had lots of gold, and gold is pretty easy to work, and the Greeks were masters of gold work, especially granulated, where they would melt the gold and put the granules onto metal. These I just put in because they're just amazing. These are earrings of royal women. You see the crown wearing earrings. Okay, so it's a very, very unusual set, and the quality of these are 4th century BC, so we're very much in the heart of the classical period, and the quality of the gold work is unsurpassed. It's just extraordinary how well the classical Greeks could work the gold, especially these granulations where they put a necklace around the neck of this is a goddess or some kind of highborn woman. This is another man. Who here has been to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York? When you go in, we go through the main entrance are right when you go straight from the front doors, and then we either go right or left, and we go look at what we're looking for, and we kind of blow through these corridors. Well, when you make a right turn, go on the right side, and you make a right turn, you will be facing Justinian. Now his earring, this is a mosaic, and of course he's got these fey pearls on, right? I mean, they look silly almost. He was not a silly ruler. He ruled 6th century, and he was the most powerful ruler in Europe at the time. He brought Byzantium into by far the most powerful city in the Mediterranean world. Alexandria was fading. Rome had been sacked. There's a wonderful romance. He married a dancing girl in his court, Theodora, and she also, there are images of Theodora and her husband, her emperor husband, wearing these wonderful multiple pearls hanging from their ears. With Justinian, this is kind of a big generalization, earrings disappear for 1,000 years. They pretty much, they're up around Bulgaria, Romania, Eastern Europe, where sort of tribals were coming in, these invaders who had sort of what we would call tribal earrings. But in Christian Europe, the earrings just about vanished for 1,000 years. And I just put this image in. Here's a typical medieval painting. The hair is down. The head is often covered. So there really is no place for earrings, all right? So we have 1,000 years of no earrings, more or less. Okay, it's, I usually do these talks in the evening, but it's noon, and I think we've all had a good breakfast and work. So this is a quiz. Who is this? Queen Elizabeth. Okay, very good. Queen Elizabeth, Elizabeth Rex, maybe Regina, sorry, Regina, I have my tutor expert right here, thank you, it's my way. And she is loaded with pearls, loaded. Pearls were available primarily from the Persian Gulf. All right, there was enough trade that pearls were going around among the wealthy, among the powerful, and these were the jewelry of choice, except she has more pearls on her than is realistic, and they are not true pearls. By the Tudor times, they had figured out how to make glass pearls and cover them with fish scales. So it's unlikely that Elizabeth is wearing, 100 pearls or whatever it is. I want you just to look at her dress. When Catherine of Aragon came up from Spain and married Henry VII, had matched her with Edward, the heir apparent, she brought huge dowry, an incredible amount of money, and she brought the high fashions of the Spanish court. And she is wearing that kind of dress that was very popular. You want to note the impossible waist, right? The Tudor portraits give the queen and the ladies of court a wasp-like waist. She's holding in one hand a staff of power, and especially want you to look on her left hand. She's holding a globe surmounted by a cross, meaning that this is a queen who's not just Queen of England, but has aspirations, let's say, to be a much wider ruler. She had, as we all know, she's the Virgin Queen. Her last suitor was a French prince when she was in her 40s, and I'm going to read to you a little bit from the book about this. His name was Francois, and it was a love match. It was something she was interested in, and I'll just read to you. So they meet, she comes to court. The match kindled, and Francois became Elizabeth's final suitor for 2 years. Elizabeth called him her, quote, frog, because of a frog-shaped emerald earring he sent her embedded in the seal of a letter. The prospective marriage was controversial because he was French and Catholic, and the English considered his mother an ogress. Yes, the French queen is not anybody in England like. At the height of the unpopular courtship, people satirized it by singing the ballad, "Froggy Came A-Courting." All right, this was a mock on this ill-considered match between the Protestant Queen Elizabeth and the Catholic Prince Francois. By saying the ballad, A Frog Went A-Courting, in which the frog rides and asks Miss Mousie to marry him, and she agrees, though she has to ask Uncle Rat. Her nation and council's anti-Catholic sentiments notwithstanding, Elizabeth danced for him, thought it charming when his representative stole her nightcap from her bedroom for Francois to sleep with, and wore the emerald earring. Passionate love letters survive. But it was not to be. Okay, the powers in court were not going to allow even this powerful queen to marry a French prince. It just wasn't going to happen. Okay, there's more to the quiz. Are you ready? It's a little bit tricky. Who's that?
Mary Queen of Scots.
Not.
Not?
This is, I'm going to give you a clue. All right, it's a little bit trick question. This is Elizabeth's closest female relative. Anne Boleyn. Why is she young?
She died young.
She died young. How did she die? Lost her head. So this is her mother. So I'm tricking you a little bit, right? So look at her. She was educated in France. So she's wearing, a distinctive French-style jacket, and she's wearing rubies. Okay, so here's the mother and the daughter. As we know, Queen Elizabeth was the last Tudor. Late in her life, she had no issue, of course, Virgin Queen. And she chose her kind of a distant cousin, James I of Scotland, to be her successor. And that begins the Stuarts. And James married, I'm of Danish descent, Anne of Denmark. And Anne here is in what similar style to Elizabeth, of course. She's wearing pearls. And Anne was an entertainer of the first water. She made the court a place of high culture entertainment. I'm going to read to you a little bit about it. This is, very popular at this time were masks, these parties where you came somewhat disguised. It was part of a ritual of discovery and hiding yourself, yet knowing who you are. And I'm just going to read to you. Ben Jonson was in her court, the poet, and he wrote, "A play, The Mask of Blackness, for the Second Stuart Christmas." Different idea of Christmas, right? We're a long way from the Victorian Christmas of today. Had themes of pearls. In an opening scene, the women appeared black as the daughters of Niger, accented all the pearls. All the maskers entered on a giant concave shell, so they became pearls too. The dresses were azure like the sea, the source of pearls, and silver with feathers and jewels, necklaces, ropes of pearls, and diamonds. Contemporary Ben Jonson, in the introduction to The Mask of Blackness, wrote, "And for the front, ear, neck, and wrists, the ornament was the most choice and ornate pearl, best setting off from the black." So this is the first Stuart queen. This is Shakespeare. He's wearing a gold ring, okay, in his left ear. The time of the Tudors and the Stuarts, the men's earring was not a marker of sexual orientation. It had nothing. It was just something beautiful. And there's portraits of Sir Walter Raleigh wearing a terrific pearl on his other ear. Here we can see it's a gold earring. It's a gold earring. This portrait is called the Chandos portrait, and it's possibly done during Shakespeare's life. And it's this portrait that's reproduced in the first folio and therefore becomes the image that we all have of Shakespeare. In the portrait in the first folio, there is no earring. One of his most famous plays was Romeo and Juliet. This is a play about love at first sight, and maybe one of the great scenes. As we know, the play opens with a fracas between the Capulets and the Montagues, and then the Capulet has a public party, and to which Romeo appears, and it's at this party that he first sees Juliet, and here's what he says. "Oh, she doth teach the torches to burn bright. It seems she hangs upon the cheek of night like a rich jewel in an Ethiop's ear. beauty too rich for use, for earth too dear. So he's using the beautiful mocha-colored skin of Ethiopians that they were familiar with to show her like this jewel against this background. And then this wonderful last line, for earth too dear. He's already, in his first words about Juliet, he's already telling us that this is not going to last. Okay, I'm just going to do one more, not exist from this period, but from the next century. This is known as the Mancini pearls. First thing to know is, of course, not just the pearls, but the diamond mounts. So by the 17th century, mostly in Holland, they had the tools to start faceting diamonds. Okay, so you can see these are beautifully faceted diamond mounts, and then the pearl hangs from them. These pearls got their name for the following reason. Louis, before he became Louis XIV, he was Dauphin. He fell in love with a young woman in the court, Italian, from the Mancini family. They had come the generation before, Marie, and he gave her these earrings. Okay. That was okay, except that after a while it became apparent that he actually was serious about marrying this woman. His mother, Queen Anne, would have nothing to do with her son marrying an upstart Italian girl in court. So the mother had Mazarin, the Cardinal Mazarin, probably the second most powerful person in the French court, marry her off to a Roman. So back to Rome with her earrings. This marriage did not go well, and she left. She left her husband after bearing a whole family, and she became kind of a court groupie. She traveled from court to court throughout Europe. She was famous. She was wealthy. She was Charles II's mistress for a while. And then she disappears from sight, and so do her earrings. Until 1979, when they came up for auction. And Barbara Hutton, the Woolworth heiress, bought them. Barbara Hutton wasted her entire inheritance, and I'm not sure where these earrings are today, but they're probably in private hands somewhere. Okay, so those are court earrings. What I'm going to show you now is a little different. In the 17th century, really a very different thing happens to art, and that is that the middle class, the burghers in Holland, in the lowlands, become the subjects of painting. And the first painting I'm going to show you is by Rembrandt. And here we are voyeurs, right? We are looking at a woman's private moment in which she is trying on her earrings. You see, it's kind of hazy the way Rembrandt can do. And so we're not at a pose here. We're not showing ourselves to the public, but rather Rembrandt is bringing us into somebody's boudoir and showing us in his very, very intimate moment. This is perhaps my favorite painting in the entire book. Here's another one that's posed, okay, but again, this is a burgher woman, and her earrings are what they call girandoles, chandeliers. They've got a mount, and then they like an upside down chandelier. And then they hang things from it. So it's a quite elaborate set of pearls hanging from her. But again, we're not in a court, right? We're in what we can, I think, safely call middle class. Okay, so now I'm going to jump to the French Revolution. We got some political earrings. These are called poissards. The poissards were a guild of women who sold fish. They were famous for their foul language, and the king blessed them. The French king gave them the right a monopoly to sell fish, and they were known as the poissards, the fishmonger ladies. And these earrings, I'll finish about the poissards. Everything went fine, but they really did not care for Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, and when the king moved the court out of Paris to Versailles, it was the poissards who led the charge out to Versailles to bring the royal couple back into the city. They were very, very powerful women. And because of this women, a whole genre of earrings came into being called poissard earrings. You can see that they have kind of a fish hook look to them. So it's not that the fishmongers wore these, but women who were sympathetic to the rebels during the French Revolution wore these, all right, as a statement. They were a political statement. Here's another statement. What's the form of punishment here? Why was it invented? Yeah. How was Marie Antoinette killed? How was Anne Boleyn killed? No. With a sword. She brought a swordsman from France who was skilled in this, because you wanted it to be quick and clean, and it was not so simple. One of Henry's other wives had a brutal execution where they didn't do it right. So the guillotine was invented by a Frenchman, guillotine, to have clean cuts, all right, to just do this in a clean way, not messy, not have to do it twice, right, but just once. So in the French Revolution, you all know Tale of Two Cities, right? My wife is sitting here knitting, right? The tricoteuses, the knitters sat at the base of the platform where the guillotine was whacking off heads, and they knitted, right, as the heads tumbled down, right, these famous things. These were not worn by the tricoteuses. These were, again, some kind of a statement worn by middle-class French women in support of the revolution. They're very, very rare. You'll see that there's both a man and a woman's head hanging below, right? They're really quite a wonderful art object, and probably worn much after the French Revolution, nobody's quite sure, as kind of a nostalgia for the good old days when the people actually ruled Paris. Okay, how are we doing? I'm going to now jump to Victorian times, 19th century. This, Jane and I were amazed at the variety of earrings we found in 19th century England, just amazed. This lady here, I forget your name, Anne, is it? Kathy was asking me about early part of the century. We have a long, long chapter on the Victorian period, which is a little bit later than Jane Austen. I think the best way I'm going to show you two kinds of earrings during the 19th century. I think the first one are sets of earrings in which the jewelry professes to the public some deep sentiments, some deep emotions. So there's a whole set of earrings that are memorials to the past, perhaps to people who died, perhaps to admired figures sometime in the past. So the cameo would be one way to do that. These are hands, ivory hands, holding clusters of grapes. And I think a good way to think about these are earrings of hospitality. When you went calling as a middle-class person in London, you would always carry a card. You would take your card and you would present it. Somebody would take your card, take the card back to somebody, whether you're going to be invited in or not, right? There was this little ritual. And often in the entryway to homes would be these hands, and they were the hands of welcome in which you would put your card. And here, the jeweler has just taken that hand, they were ivory, and has closed it a little bit so it holds grapes, also a symbol of hospitality. So these were very, very popular in 19th century England. I want to also say important for understanding earrings at this time is the emergence of the middle class and department stores. Okay, for court people, the jeweler came to court, right? But now there were enough people with some leisure, women with some leisure and some money. There were stores, and you could go and you could browse and you could buy. They were public places. So a whole area of jewelry now becomes available to many, many people. And we were surprised at kind of the daring of it. There's just every imaginable motif in these Victorian earrings. Let me see what else I have here. These are also memorial. These are oak leaves. These are specifically in memory of somebody. These are American, and these are Civil War earrings and human hair. So the hair was seen as, you put it in a locket, you save somebody's locket of hair. Here they take the hair and they made these kind of flower leaf designs inside the crystal, put them in a crystal, and then wear them. All right, so that's a lovely pair of memorial, remembering the dead by wearing a part of that person. The other part that we worked a lot on was Darwin. Darwin's still with us, right? Darwin published his book in 1859. Everybody here knows it. Has anybody here actually read it? Good for you. I've tried about 3 times, and I've never really made it.
Not easy.
Bestseller. Sold out within months. Reprinted. Darwin was everywhere. And Darwin excited an interest in natural life that really is quite surprising. This is a pair not of bees. This is a pair of flies. Repoussé, right? They have pounded out the flies from the back. And the flies were considered an insect which was attracted to sweetness, for example. Somehow didn't have all the negative connotations that they have today. And let me just read you a little bit about the insects. In the 1860s, the vogue for insects was brisk. Earrings arrested the movement of the insects, yet wearing the earrings reanimated them. They also idealized nature, such as a nest of birds' eggs, not in peril of snakes or raccoons, but set in aesthetic perpetuity. We have a number of these in the book. In its Curious Relations, 1866, William Darfy gives the description, bonnets and veils were covered with every kind of beetle. That at least was the beginning of the mode, but it soon extended itself from rose beetles with their bronze and green carapaces to stag beetles. Parasols were liberally sprinkled with ticks, with grasshoppers, with woodlice. Veils were sewn with earwigs, with cockafurs and hornets. Tulle scarves and veiling sometimes had on them artificial bed bugs. So in this interest in the natural world, you can see we're all kind of, lice, and like our granddaughter goes to a kindergarten, they get lice warnings and that kind of stuff. But here, it's just seen as part of an interesting world that is worthy of putting on the jewelry. So that's Darwin. Here's a wonderful pair. This is in the box. This is at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. We have fish in a bowl hanging from the ear, and it's this is the W.J. Thomas, a jeweler in the middle of London. Anybody could go and look at the jewelry and buy it from him. This is not in the book, but I felt I had to put it back. We, of course, associate Victorian with black. All right. Albert died in 1861, and for the next 26 years, Victoria mourned, and the court only wore black, and the jewelry of choice was Whitby jet. Jet is a fossilized driftwood, right? It's a very soft form from Whitby up on Yorkshire Shore, up in the north of England, and it was easy to work. They also wore agate and other black stones. But anyway, here is just an image of some flowers. These look like they're, Dana, can you help me? The flower that hangs down that the bees love. Like what? Well, any rate, but here it is in the Whitby. Fuchsia, I'm thinking of something, but anyway, whatever. Pardon? Yeah, it looks like a little bit like a foxglove. This is a non-PC word, suffragette, right? They're suffragists, but the earrings are called suffragettes. They've kept this name. And the English suffragists were a much more radical group than Americans. They threw bricks through windows. There was a death by throwing a woman through herself in front of a royal carriage. There was a much more radical group. And they produced earrings for sale that were a political statement. And they chose the colors. Let me just get this straight. Green for hope, purple for freedom, and white, where the white's maybe in the center, white for purity. And these were sold, they're still around, for middle-class women to wear in support of the suffrage movement. Okay, I'm going to, we got some performers. Maybe I'll just spend a little time on Mae West. She made her first movie when she was 39. She was a well-established vaudeville star by this time. She got a small part in a George Raft movie, and Night After Night. And in this is a famous scene. Let's see if you people can finish the line. She walks into a nightclub. She's decked out, right? Decked out. And the hat check lady says to her, "My goodness, what lovely diamonds." And Mae West responds, "Goodness has nothing to do with this." This is Mae West's own line. She wrote this into the script. She was a wonderful writer, wonderful writer. Okay, that's me. We have one performer in twice. Marilyn Monroe. I have kind of a thing for Marilyn. Here on the left is, your left is in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And she's there wearing high-end diamonds. On the right is my favorite picture. Marilyn was not she was a costume jewelry lady, right? And here she is in a rare happy moment. Marilyn almost always looks afraid and vulnerable, and I guess that's why we're attracted to her. Here she's actually looks like she's having a good time. And I'm going to contrast her with Liz. Liz was a jewelry lady, right? She was a jewelry lady. And we have a section on her. She had 3 husbands who lavished jewels on her. Michael Todd, Eddie Fisher, and Richard Burton, right? And when, I'm not going to read, we're running a little late. When her she died in 2011, and her jewelry went for sale. It was the largest jewelry sale ever. It came well over $100 million, right? It was a tremendous sale. So this is Liz with her emeralds. Here we have emeralds and diamonds. Okay, I think we're running a little, is it okay? I don't need her? Okay. We then have a section on contemporary. Who here owned Barbie dolls? When was the first Barbie? Good, 64. First black Barbie was 67. pretty early. And there's a contemporary jeweler, Margot Lang, who takes the Barbie eyes and puts them into earrings. So you're looking at a doll repurposed as an earring. Here's a jeweler in Brooklyn. She takes pop art and she just puts it on plastic. I'm just trying to give you some idea of the range of contemporary. Over here is Stephanie Kilgast. She's French, lives in France at least. She does food, sushi, cupcakes, little biscuits. They're wonderful, wonderful. You can find all these on the web. They're all for sale, all of these things. And then I'm going to close with a contemporary with this one. These are sensor earrings. So you know how you can get your blood pressure by they just put your finger into a thing and it's reading, it's using infrared to find the pulses. So on these earrings, when the wearer's pulse starts to increase, the LED, the light, starts flashing.
And that's to do what? To let you know how high it is or to calm you down?
She's excited and you can
So,
pass it.
if you approach a woman
I went out of my head.
wearing these earrings and they start flashing, continue. Continue.
That's
All right? I have bad news for all of you young ladies. These were never marketed. They were invented by 3 men in California. And to get into the teen market, they had to make them for something like $15, and they never could do it. In other words, they couldn't price them for the kinds of people who would love to see that who, especially the girls, of course, who is making this light go on. Okay. All right, so let me just close with two things. Here is the cheese cow, la vache qui rit, wearing cheese earrings. All right, this is our only advertising that we have in the book. And then I want to close with these. How many people? How many people's mothers had pierced ears? A few of you. Really? How many of our mothers wore clip-ons?
but they didn't always.
Why? Why didn't they pierce their ears?
It was considered barbaric.
It was considered barbaric, maybe a little strong, but it was considered low class.
But
Ethnic.
The grandmothers.
Maybe the grandmothers, but I
grandmothers.
think it's a fair generalization to say that, from about 1900 to 1960, you weren't going to find too many pierced earrings on middle-class women. So maybe the immigrant story is as the immigrants became Americanized, no, we're not going to have gypsy earrings on, that kind of thing. But on clip-ons, these are, we were talking to Kathy earlier, these are by Miriam Haskell, and these are costume jewelry, but not interested in stones. Just in the beauty of the earrings. And she designed earrings for Joan Crawford, Gloria Vanderbilt. These many wealthy people bought Miriam Haskell earrings. And on the right side are mass-produced Trafaris. Trafari, almost all costume jewelry was made either in Newark, Philip Roth, you can read in his fiction, or in Providence. Those are the two big centers. There is a kind of a museum for costume jewelry, mass-produced, but they are beautiful, right? They are beautiful earrings. And of course, this is for anybody to wear. I mean, we all had enough money to buy these kinds of earrings. Okay. Your stories. I'm going to start with Kathy. I know she has a story. It's a great story, and if anybody else has some stories to share, please do. I have some stories if you want to hear my stories. So go ahead.
Well, I collect earrings. It's not extensive, but
I like earrings a lot. And shoes. Very bad. And that I got from my grandmother. And one of the things that I did when I was 16 years old, I saved up all my babysitting money because I wanted diamond earrings like my grandmother had. My grandmother had her ears pierced when she was little. She was born in this country. But she had it pierced because, that was the idea that you would be wearing diamonds when you got older. Okay. So I saved up my babysitting money, and I went to a jeweler on 47th Street down in Manhattan, in the jewelry district. And man was recommended to me. His name popped up a lot. And when your name pops up, when you hear a name popping up a lot, you figure, okay, this guy can be trusted. So I went to him, and I wanted to get a pair of earrings, diamond earrings. This is what I wanted. I was 16, saved up my babysitting money. And so I went to his store, and I told him what I wanted. I told him who sent me there and recommended him. And he was a very sweet old guy, died 5 years later, I found out. And I went to pay. I found the earrings I'm wearing. I've had them for, 50 years. Okay? They're about a quarter of a carat, maybe less. I don't remember anymore. And I went to pay for it, and he wouldn't take my money. He gave them to me because he was very impressed with the fact that I saved up my money, and also I was very nice and I was very sweet. And I looked a lot better than I did.
Very good.
And he was a very sweet man, and he gave me these earrings. He says, "Darling, you put them away for another time. Put your money away." and that's what I did.
Very good.
He basically taught me how to save money.
I know I'm going to pick on the lady in the second row who's got mismatched or kind of mismatched. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your earrings?
I don't
Show everybody what you're wearing.
So there's an exclamation point and a question mark. And I actually don't remember where these particular earrings came from, but I do have a pretty large collection of novelty earrings. Food items and the usual, parrots and fish and cars, and bigger, the tackier, the better. And when I was working, I also made sure that I had accumulated about a week of bad attitude earrings. People would stay away, She's wearing the kitty litter, the meat cleavers,
Wow. So as I was mentioning to this lady, we have a section on Frida Kahlo, who wore, as a statement, mismatched. All right. She of course was a very unorthodox woman, and she wore strikingly different lengths, different textures, and that's in the book. I didn't show you an illustration of that, so thank you very much.
I once found, when I was at the beach in Delaware, some gift shop had Frida Kahlo portrait earrings, so
Oh,
they're in my
there's a
collection.
collector's thing. Portraits. Anybody else? Yeah.
You mentioned Newark, New Jersey.
Newark.
Where-
Yeah.
My father was a letter carrier in the ironbound section of Newark.
Oh.
And he delivered to Kremitz.
Yep.
And he would tell us how every once in a while they'd take up the wood floors and burn them so they could get the gold out of the floor. So they would, redo it again.
Say this again.
They had wood floors.
Oh, and the filings.
Yes, and they would,
Wow.
every once in a while, they'd take, I don't know how often, but they'd take up the wood floors and burn the floors just to get the gold back, what they dropped on the floor.
That's wonderful.
And also, I was never into earrings, but I love jewelry. And I think it all goes back to my grandmother. She wanted to give me diamond earrings. And, but she just wouldn't give me the earrings. I had to have my ears pierced first. And I didn't want to do it because I know she would never give me the earrings, probably even after I had it done. So I would just, and I never did get the earrings, but if I grew up in the time when they had the screw back type, you know,
Yeah.
and I said, it's good enough. What do I need to do that? And I guess I was kind of mad at her too, you know.
Any stories about getting your ears pierced against your mother's? Yeah, back there.
I had them done by my girlfriend's sister with an ice cube in her kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah, we were. I did my own.
Did your own? Okay.
Ice cube, yeah. I did my own in 1965 when it was kind of a controversial thing just starting. And that summer I worked at a girls' overnight camp as a counselor. And when one of the other girls heard that I had pierced my own ears, and I did them with a bar of soap and the needle, she asked me to do hers. So I did hers, and later that day another girl came and asked me to do hers. I ended up doing 11 different counts. And of course none of the parents were around to say don't do it. So
So it was a statement, right? Piercing our ears in the 60s was a statement. I gave a talk at the Lexington, Massachusetts Public Library, and one of the ladies in the audience knew, or somehow across the street lived the man who invented the gun that they use now, you know, because now you just go and they go boom and you've got it and it's finished, right? Well, this was the man who actually invented. I had mine done in a mall, shopping mall, right? Some 18-year-old, and that was it. So, okay, then let me just finish with any other stories, any other piercing? Yeah.
You know, the opposite was, you mentioned that these many, many decades where, a lot of people who didn't pierce, except I mentioned ethnic.
Yeah.
And, my stepmother was Greek.
Uh-huh.
And, in their family, as almost infants, the girls would have pierced ears. And yet, believe me, the other side of my family would find that to be barbaric, child abuse, really seriously. I mean, horrific to
Really?
see like little girls with earrings, but
So what went in the ears? A small stone?
I think it was gold was very big.
A gold stud.
For the Greeks.
Yeah, a
And
gold.
so it was a very small, fairly tasteful round ball, and I have those earrings still from my, inherited from when my stepmother died.
Lady back here? Yeah.
My Aunt Martha gave me a pair of little gold hoop-pierced earrings, and I didn't have pierced ears. So I went to my doctor. I happened to be pregnant with my daughter, and doctor said, no, I will not pierce your ears while you're pregnant. We wait until after your pregnancy, chance of infection.
Yeah.
So then my first visit or something after I had her, he pierces my ears while he's talking on the telephone. And that was when they put the black nylon thread through your ears, and you wore that for 10 days, And one went through crooked, and I couldn't get the earring in, and a friend couldn't get the earring in, and he had to re-pierce it straight.
Here's an earring I didn't show you. This is in Stuart Times. It's a thread, silk thread. It is not threaded through the hole in the lobe. It's on a mount. And these were just very briefly popular. But you can see they're threads, they're silk threads. So something like that. Yeah. Any other stories? Okay, I'll finish up by reading one story. We collected some stories. This is one of my favorites. This is Gay Talese. Gay Talese, a very prominent Italian-American author who writes about kind of risky subjects like massage parlors and things like that. He's a wonderful writer. When I think of earrings, I think of handsome black men. None more handsome and talented than Michael Jordan. He offset his gold ring that punctuated his left ear by shaving his head, and so all you had was the combined shine of his glistening face sweating through a fourth quarter comeback, and the glistening circular ring, the gold itself, bearing his spectacular sweat. About earrings for women, I never much thought about, he's married to Nancy, he's a very prominent editor in New York. About earrings for women, I never much thought about it and certainly never bought earrings for women, most particularly for my wife, who regularly loses the ones she buys for herself, if indeed she did buy them for herself. Who knows if lovers of other men's wives are more generous than a woman's longtime spouse? Anyway, I believed long ago that spending money on jewelry was risky and unwise, especially if the jewelry was small and easily lost perhaps in a hotel bed during an afternoon tryst. Thank you very much for coming. Enjoy your